first one up is Howard McCumber's request, and we're going to start that out with a quick review by Chip as to what has happened, why we're here, and then turn it over. They'll be very quick. I'm going to stop this part of the program at 10 after 6 because we have another one that takes an equal amount of time. So that's the time that's been allotted to it. Okay, Chip, be quick.
Okay, thank you, Council Council members, Chip Vincent from Community and Economic Development staff, joined by Cliff Long, our Economic Development Director here for the city. What I've done tonight is I've integrated the Affordable Housing Howard McCumber proposal into the CED update. And for purposes, as Council President Person indicated, want to just real quickly recap a presentation that I provided you on June 16th. But unfortunately, because of personal issues, Howard was unable to be there on that evening. So this is an opportunity to just real briefly review it and then provide the opportunity for Howard to respond to his proposal to the council as well. So basically, the McCumber proposal, as we've coined it, identifies 3 different requests to the city council. One is to waive a number of different fees associated with permitting and planning requirements, waiving the open space requirements, and finally waiving the street standards requirements for the city. In exchange for this, the original proposal was to provide owner-occupied, low or median income housing for people within the Sunset community. As a recap, on December 9th of 2013, the Planning and Development Committee of the City Council said that in their evaluation and estimation of this proposal at that time, they didn't feel like this discussion was ripe for policy consideration by the City Council. They didn't believe it was ripe until such time as the City Council and the Planning and Development Committee, or the Committee of the Whole, had the opportunity to review the Housing and Human Services element of the comprehensive plan. And it was at that point in time where you made choices in terms of what policies and strategies to advance for affordable housing. And from the administration's point of view, we concur with that proposal from the Planning and Development Committee to the full City Council that the point in time to have this conversation is part of the update to that Housing and Human Services element. But as part of that, we identified 3 key concerns. I wanted to put those on the table here for this, for the council's part of this discussion this evening. The first is, in the original proposal offered by Mr. McCumber, if offered 10 years of affordable housing, this is from our estimation, a very short period of time for the requests for waivers that are being requested. Typically, for nonprofit affordable housing providers, when there's waivers and exemptions to the code, typically the duration of those houses being created is between 30 and 50 years. So 10 years didn't seem like a very long period of time for the request as a whole. Secondly, we all know some of the issues and challenges with a lot of the housing stock up in the Highlands, and from the administration's point of view, we did not want to incentivize the retention of a lot of that housing up there that's antiquated. We'd rather incentivize its conversion to higher quality standard housing that meets today's codes and requirements. And then the final piece of it was the fact that the streetscape standards are an integral part of the Sunset Community Investment Strategy, and we didn't want to, as the administration, advance any proposal, public or private, that didn't include the full complete streetscape, understanding that that's one of the cornerstones of the whole revitalization project for the Sunset community area. So with that, it's not turning over. So that's just a really quick recap of the June 16th Committee of the Whole meeting, and I'd like to, with Council President Person's permission, invite Howard McCumber.
Okay, Howard, it's your show.
Okay, and I have a very capable attorney who's a good friend who will be able to talk for me.
Good evening, council members. My name is Sam Rodabaugh, 10900 Northeast 4th Street, Suite 2300 in Bellevue. And I am providing comment tonight as legal counsel on behalf of the applicants of the Jefferson Glade short plat, namely my father, Sid Rodabaugh, who is here, his project partner, Jim Houghton, and their agent, Howard McComber. We genuinely appreciate that you've set the time aside tonight, the committee as a whole, to review our proposal. For those of you that were on the council back in 2010 and 2011 laboring on the Shoreline Master Program, we've had a history together, and I have been involved in drafting various portions of the city code to do that. I wanted to step back for one moment and give a brief history of the area that is the subject of our proposed ordinance, and that is the Sunset area. That area was initially developed as publicly funded worker housing during World War II, and for several decades the area enjoyed a lot of growth and stability. However, as we know, in the decades that followed, home ownership declined. Housing maintenance was frequently deferred, and the growth and stability that previously existed in that area diminished. And to this council's credit, in the late 1990s, this council identified the Sunset area for redevelopment and for further public and private investment. And those councils, your efforts intensified in the 2000s with the development of a new comprehensive plan, new zoning for the area, and ultimately calling for a community-wide revitalization of the Sunset area through increased public and private investment. And that comprehensive plan calls for a mix of housing products in that area. As part of that incentive, this council adopted an ordinance to allow for certain fee waivers in the development process to incentivize that redevelopment. And many of the aspects of that fee waiver provision targeted the Center Village Comprehensive Plan designation. And that ordinance is actually set to sunset at the conclusion of 2015. So I believe it's December 31, 2015. So at that time, this council will actually be taking a comprehensive look at all of the fee waiver provisions that you currently have on your books. Now, I wanted to define part of the problem that we are having with our proposed project, the Jefferson Glade short plat. The ownership pattern that has developed in the Sunset area is a diverse pattern of ownership. And it is very difficult for those looking to redevelop to actually aggregate enough lots in an area that you can have, a city block or, a larger portion of property that can be developed at once. Those that are in the right zoning designation where that's occurred, the redevelopment that we have seen has been apartment buildings. And again, the comprehensive plan calls for a mix of housing stock. And because of the difficulty in acquiring large blocks that are owned, house by certain property owners, while it is ideal that it would be redeveloped in large block segments, in reality that is not going to be how redevelopment will occur. It's just not possible to aggregate enough ownership. And usually when you do that, you are paying a premium for the land because property owners always want to be the last one to hold out because they think that they can maximize their value. So in this case, a piece of property was purchased that is zoned so that it can be redeveloped. And when you do that, you're buying the land and an existing housing product that has value in and of itself, whether it's owned or it's to be rented. And so to redevelop, you have to you have to look at tearing that housing product down, and you're already taking a hit as far as your development. And in this project, we're doing a short plat. There is an existing duplex. The property was platted for 4 lots, and the proposal is for there to be 3 new houses on the new lots to be created. And every way that we have looked at this project, in working with Mr. McComber, in working with other developers, with the existing standards and fee structures that we have in place, we have been unsuccessful, even in a recovery of the housing market, to be able to find a way that a project like this would pencil out. Part of the problem is that we do have extensive street improvement requirements that are full sidewalk, gutter, planter strip. Sometimes we refer to them as a rain garden. On one side of this project, we have a sidewalk that was constructed approximately 5 years ago. It's a beautiful sidewalk in great condition, but as a condition of this project and new standards, the requirement is to tear that existing sidewalk out and install a new one to new standards. Also in the Sunset area, you have a lot of smaller blocks, and so many of your existing lots are corner lots, which require street improvements on two sides of your project. Those are very expensive. There are also significant requirements for open space set-asides, and for a smaller project of this size, that's very difficult to comply with. And in many circumstances, you have schools and parks and other open areas within very close proximity as far as open space. And so we have attempted, in working with developers, to make a project like this pencil out. It's a very simple project, and with the existing standards in place, it simply is not feasible. This project group is the only group that I am aware of, with the exception of one other builder that had existing lots that have been around for some time, to look at providing single-family residences and redevelopment in the Sunset area. The only other projects that can be incentivized enough are large apartment buildings, because at the moment your code basically allows a fee waiver for projects of 10 units or larger. And again, where you can aggregate your property to a big enough size, that is helpful. But for real redevelopment to occur, much of it will have to occur on a smaller scale. And when you consider the existing fees and some of the development standards that are in place, we have tried very hard, and that is with a housing product. These houses will be beautiful. They are intended to have a retail price of around $330,000. A perfect price point for the area that can be a starter home, can be essentially affordable housing for someone, which is much needed in the area after the decline of owner occupancy. All of the studies show that owner occupancy provides economic and social benefits to the community. When people have skin in the game, everybody is raised and lifted in that community. Whether it's from greater civic participation in the city, in school boards, in PTA, whether it's parenting, keeping their kids off the street because they want a nice neighborhood, whether it's maintaining their own homes, and whether it's ability for moving up that economic ladder, all of the studies indicate that owner occupancy is a key to do that. And while there will always be a healthy dose of rental housing that is available, it needs to be balanced with owner occupancy. And this is the only ownership group that is doing that. The short plat that was approved for this is set to expire in February of 2015, which means a project needs to be commenced immediately, or it simply will not happen. And I have no doubt, after all of their noble efforts to make this project happen, that there probably will not be a revisiting of this area with another project if something as simple as the existing one cannot happen. So we have attempted to work with staff to come up with a way that we could do a small tweak to the existing ordinance that you have, your existing code, so that instead of allowing an exception to certain fee waivers for if you have 10 units or larger, which those projects actually, because of economies of scale, have an easier time meeting some of the requirements, that it would apply to smaller projects. We have intentionally made the proposal narrow so that it focuses on the comprehensive plan designation that we care about, which is the Central Village Comprehensive Plan. So we would take the existing ordinance, We would apply it to these smaller projects, and you would have a full opportunity, as you will with all of your fee waivers, to review this issue before it sunsets at the conclusion of 2015. The goal here is that the sale of these units, once there has been a waiver of certain land use fees, the short plat fees, the preliminary short plat fees, and some of the basic standards, curb, sidewalk, some of the open space requirements, that these homes that would be offered for sale would be limited to being owner occupied. Now, there was a concern that was raised by staff that we don't feel that the time period of owner occupancy is enough. In fact, there was one proposal that's been on the table for 10 years. At the moment, we're actually looking at just ensuring that the initial sale is owner occupied. And there's a reason for that. When you're dealing with these public partnerships, there's usually a way to make that happen. But we need to ensure that private individuals, the people that buy these residences, can actually secure the necessary financing in order to buy the home. And the problem is when we approach the banks and we say, look, we're looking at making this housing product, which are going to be these beautiful homes at the right price point that's going to redevelop Sunset. We want to put a covenant on there that restricts the sale of the unit to being owner occupied only. The banks are concerned that if they ever had to repossess that home and had to resell it, that would significantly narrow the market of individuals that they could resell the property to. And so the hope is that once a residence has commenced as owner occupancy, once we have given them the opportunity to get in their home and they have that pride of ownership, that it will remain as owner occupied. But it's very difficult to put, if you will, a restraint on alienation as to how that house can be sold from there. There are studies that actually show the economic benefit to a community of owner-occupied housing. The most recent out of the University of Pennsylvania said that per home, a city actually saves about $1,500 per unit annually when a house is owner-occupied versus if it's a rental. We're talking in police enforcement costs, in all of the externalities that you can have in a community. We believe that the fee waivers that we're looking at and the waivers of development standards will be more than paid back to the community. But the key being that we have a narrow window of time to try to make a project, trying to get a foot in the door to see if this can be done and be done successfully in an area that desperately needs it. And so we're looking for a slight tweak in your current code that would allow a project like this to obtain the fee waivers that the larger projects essentially have. And that this could be the model to see if this works moving forward. We don't see a lot of risk because you have an opportunity to use this as your test case and reevaluate in a short period of time whether this ordinance is working as intended. In the meantime, there is a concern that if this project doesn't work, at least this group of owners probably would not be looking at that area again because of the existing standards. There have been concerns about the overall plan that have been expressed, that if you don't put in sidewalks, those are critical to the overall comprehensive plan. The city has recently gotten various grants and is actually putting in sidewalks in various parts of the community. The difficulty is you can't build rain gardens one small block at a time. It's not terribly economically feasible, and frankly, it takes a long time for that vision to come about. And so we see that a lot of the desired sidewalks and improvements in that regard may be coming from grants and other opportunities in the future. With respect to open space, that's a very new requirement, and we are only allowing projects to be eligible where you have existing publicly owned recreation within a quarter mile of the site, meaning that there already is existing opportunities for open space and recreation. So we don't see that as a big challenge to accomplishing the goals under the comprehensive plan. And so we would ask the council to carefully consider the circumstances in which this project finds itself, to look at the goals that we're trying to accomplish, and to find a way to be problem solvers so that this goal of bringing owner-occupied housing and having it eventually at a price point where that's considered affordable housing with respect to our community standards can move forward. We do not think that this is a big sacrifice, that you have systems in place that will allow you to reevaluate this and its effectiveness, and that somehow we can be problem solvers to make this happen. If there are tweaks, if there are desired amendments by the council that would make it more palatable, we're open to those. We obviously have a difficult time frame in front of us, and that's why we appreciate having this opportunity tonight to present this to you and see if there's a way that we can get your fee waiver provisions to extend to this area we're trying to revitalize and encompass the project that we have here that's set to expire. The only other thing that I would mention was concern about keeping some of the existing housing stock. And I would mention that the short plat that has already been approved for this project, the very first condition of project approval is to upgrade the exterior of the duplex so that it looks similar to the existing housing product that's going in there. In other words, we're not simply trying to retain an existing housing product that is out of date. The conditions of approval already require an upgrade so that it looks as modern as the rest of the community. But you can imagine if we're having a difficulty making the project pencil out as is, once you remove the existing housing stock and lose that value, there's really nowhere else to recoup it in the project. And the thought is that if you surround existing housing product with new upgraded housing product, it builds pressure on the remainder of the community to follow suit, and perhaps even eventually that duplex itself. But it is by design and by requirement of the planning department, including Mr. Vincent, that approved this short plat, that will be upgraded, and that it will, as close as possible, it says, so it would be in compliance with RMC 4-115, which are basically your existing housing standards. So with that, I wanted to ensure that we have Mr. McComber here and Mr. Houghton on this project, so that if you have any questions or any concerns, that those can be asked tonight. Thank you. Jim, you had something you need to say?
If the mayor is here or not, but President Person and members of the council, I'm Jim Houghton. I think I've spoken to you once before in the past, and I've been developing real estate, primarily single-family lots in 7 counties, more than a dozen cities, and all throughout Western Washington for the past 40 years. I know numbers quite well. I've produced more than 3,000 lots in the last 40 years. I have prepared a little document. I think I'd just like to pass those out to you, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I just want to go through a few of the numbers with you. May I bring these up?
Sure.
Please.
Thank you.
All right, I know time is far spent, and all I want to do is just go through a couple of numbers with you on the second page, and that is that the following example is of 4 lots, similar to what we've done on Jefferson Glade, but I want to point out that it wouldn't be any difference if we had 2 lots or 3 lots or 4 lots. The cost would pretty much be the same, and that is the cost of a duplex. If we had to remove a duplex, the cost to remove that per lot would be $60,000. The rent and city fees based on the new 2014 fee schedule, are $26,961. By the time we do all our engineering, all of the earthwork, soils work, all of those landscaping plans, appraisals and so forth, that costs $18,000. And then all of the construction work and upgrading the duplex is $52,000, and that comes to a total of $156,961. Just makes a project totally undoable. The lots in that area are selling $75,000 to $80,000. What that is based on is the fact that a new house in the Sunset duplex area, and I'm just talking about the area of all of the duplexes, that a new house in that area will sell for approximately $325,000 plus or minus. The only two homes that I'm aware of that have been built there in the last 3 years are two lots on Northeast 16th Street, directly across the street from the new North Highlands Neighborhood Park Playground. Those two homes were built earlier this year. They sold. One of them sold, the asking price was $380,880, and it sold for $290,000. 1,617 square feet, a nice home. The other one was the identical same house. It sold for $305,450. We know that's the price point in this market area, and that's what we have to shoot for if we're going to develop up there. With the elimination of the removal of the duplex, the city fees, and I'm not talking about, I know the Issaquah impact fee of school district impact fee of $5,730 is not removable or waivable.
Mr. Howden,
Yes,
why would you pay Issaquah impact fees when you're in the Renton School District?
on where this project is located, I thought we were in the Issaquah School District. Okay,
You're-
sorry.
this
I'm thinking of our
project-
other
this project
project.
is
We had
less than
another
a block
project that was
from
in
a
this,
couple
yeah, all
Renton
right.
About
schools.
the same cost.
Renton's
That's
higher.
my mistake, man. Sorry about that. We're working on 3 projects up there. 2 of them in Renton School District, 1 was in the Issaquah School District. So, and with the removal of those fees, and with the removal of the city fees, and with the removal of the sidewalk and planting strip, we have a doable project. We can produce a lot for about $60,000. It's marginal, but it can be done. It's the only way that I can see as a longtime developer. I've sold lots to most of the home builders, particularly larger home builders in Western Washington. And the only way that we can do projects up there, and the only way that new housing construction, single-family houses that will be owner-occupied, will be constructed in the Sunset duplex area, is if we receive these waivers. And be happy to answer any questions, and you can read the rest of the data.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time.
Anything else? Any questions from the council?
Don?
Yes.
Actually, I have a question for Chip.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sam.
Mr. Rotobaugh, go ahead.
No, my understanding, this being the committee of the whole, I mean, I simply wanted to indicate what relief we're seeking. I understand that you, as a committee of the whole, don't have the ability to adopt something this evening, but we would ask that this get forwarded to the council for adoption and review if there are any desired amendments or changes that the council may desire. But we don't see any other way to make this project move forward, and I'm concerned that moving forward, others will see the difficulty of working in this area, and we want to make it happen. We think it would be good for the community. It's a good start for what is needed up there, and hopefully will provide a model for other work moving forward. If not, I think it's going to be very difficult to meet the long-term plans and what is envisioned for the Sunset revitalization area. So thank you.
Mr. President, actually, I have a question for staff. Hey, Chip, will you walk me through our fee waiver process as a city? And have we ever done anything like this before where we've waived all the fees for a project? I just want a general idea for myself and for some of my colleagues who may not know.
Yes. Specifically, we do have a fee waiver provision in our code today, and as Mr. Rotobaugh indicated, typically there's a threshold there that it can only be applied in certain zones for 10 units or more. And those are really the two key requirements for the application of fee waivers. And that is predicated upon the fact was with the zoning, the CV and the CD zones in our areas that we were trying to incentivize redevelopment of those areas because of the existing development standards and improvements that we have in those areas. The council really wanted to target those zones where they're trying to create redevelopment in the first place. The second is looking, the second key is that 10 units, because what we're really talking about is really getting to multifamily projects. That was what was really envisioned with the zoning that was established in the zone, is getting to multifamily. So I believe that's why the council at the time set 10 dwelling units per acre as that threshold for that. So I wasn't here though when that was established, but those are the basic requirements. The process is that developer applies for the fee waivers and then goes through the council process. We've done this in many of the projects in the downtown area where they've gone through the Planning and Development Committee and back to the council to seek relief in the form of fee waivers as well as tax benefits as well.
And you wanted a code
I'm sorry, Mr.
citation.
Rodobow, real quick. And my second part of that question was, have we ever done this where we've waived all our fees for a project?
Boy, I don't know. I'd have to go back.
In your time?
Look at that, not in my time.
Okay.
I will say, in my time though, 5 years of my time has been an economic downturn. So, you know, a lot of this stuff, we're
That's very
looking prospectively, and we just haven't had a lot of activity or interest.
So the specific code provision is RMC 4-1-210. It's entitled waived fees. And as currently adopted, the council has targeted the Center Village Comprehensive Plan where this is located, and currently the project has to be a minimum of 10 units. And again, where you can aggregate an entire city block, that can make a lot of sense. For doing the smaller projects and the difficulty of acquiring the property from multiple individuals to redevelop, most of this is going to be developed in smaller chunks than that. And so, again, we're keeping it very narrow to the comprehensive plan designation that we're targeting, and allowing it for projects of any number of units, as long as those units are going to be sold as owner occupied. Again, the existing incentive really does well for rental housing.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rodobow, I'm sorry, I hate to cut you off.
Yeah.
How can we ensure that it's going to be owner occupied? Couldn't someone buy it and then rent it out? I mean, what can we do to ensure that it's owner occupied?
We are open to any other amendments.
Well, I'm just asking,
Yeah,
what can be
at the
done?
moment, we have, there's a requirement in here that a covenant be placed on the property to ensure that for the first transaction, it is owner occupied. We do have the challenge that the banks are concerned that if there's a permanent restraint on alienation, you know, that it can only be conveyed to owner occupiers, that they might have difficulty, you know, having to resell the property if they ever had to foreclose. But a lot of times when you are doing, trying to give incentives, there's only so much control that you have on how it's sold, but you try putting those mechanisms in place that when it's initially owner occupied, presumably someone getting into their first home, that's going to be owned for quite some time. If there are other limitations or ideas from the council, if that's a concern that would continue that longer, hey, we're open to them. We want this to happen, and we're not coming here saying that what we've drafted, I assume that a copy of this is in your packet, is a take it or leave it proposition. We're here to be problem solvers, and if that's an issue, Councilmember Prince, that is a concern and that would be necessary to get your support, we'll work with you to make that happen. We would just like this forwarded to the council so that things can move in a timely manner, so that there's still a way to salvage this desirable project.
I'm going to use my executive privilege because we got 2 minutes left. I'm going to ask a couple questions, and then this will be, we'll just run out of time. First of all, this whole thing started to be affordable housing and to help people get into housing, and that there was a requirement that you put on it, not us, of a 10-year maximum, minimum home ownership. I have real problems with waiving fees when somebody could buy it today and sell it tomorrow. And we waive fees for one thing. So the city does need protection, just throwing that out at you. Secondly, this duplex that is on there, will that be remodeled into a single-family house?
No, Councilmember Person, it will remain as a duplex. However, per the required condition of the short plat approval, it has to be upgraded to the extent feasible to comply with the existing standards in the area for appearance and to have like appearance to the existing product that is there.
Okay, but I guess if I buy a duplex, I buy it with the idea I'm gonna maybe live in one end and rent in the other end, right? I mean, you're not gonna sell this end of the duplex and that. So those are questions that you're gonna have to answer for us, and then if you can get those in writing to us, I'll give them to the council, and then we'll take this up, but we've run out of time
And
on this.
to clarify on that last question, the duplex can be condominiumized. And because we are promising that the units in this project will be owner occupied, we are not exempting the duplex from that. That can be condominiumized and sold as owner occupied. But in light of some of these last minute changes, we'd still like to move this forward to the council and work with these changes so we can keep on a time frame.
Okay, we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have the CED.
Okay, so moving on here, a couple more things that we'd like to discuss with you and bring you up to date on tonight. And that is with respect to our comprehensive plan update and our development regulations update. As the council knows, I am having trouble. Oh, I went too far. We began updating our comprehensive plan last year in 2013. This is part of our obligation as a city under the Growth Management Act to update our comprehensive plan every 8 years. We are required to have this updated, completed by the end of June in 2015. And we wanted to give ourselves the time and the opportunity to be thoughtful and judicious, but most importantly, invite the public in to be part of this comprehensive update to our plan as part of the process. So we've made significant progress on the work, beginning with the work that we accomplished in 2013, looking at the vision of the comprehensive plan, updating our parks element, our economic development element, and our utilities element. And I know the council's seen it in the past, but I just wanted to highlight in the sidebar there that we have a completely new format for each element of the comprehensive plan to make the elements in the comprehensive plan itself as understandable and as user-friendly as possible. That's one of our key goals as part of this update process. As part of that first round of updates, we held public open houses and we had extensive meetings with our planning commission. And those first group of elements were basically put on the top shelf at the end of 2013, and we began our next body of work. But also in 2013, there were additional work done on 3 different elements, knowing that there was going to be significant background work that was going to be required to update these elements. First is for the Housing and Human Services element that we touched on earlier. We have completed a community needs assessment, looking at our entire community and looking at what the housing and human services needs are across the community so we can make more informed policy and strategy choices as part of the update to that element. Secondly, on the land use element, we really looked at what we call the scale and scope of the update to the comprehensive plan. And I will tell you, where this initially started as a simple update has really become more of a reevaluation of a lot of the decisions that were made in our original comprehensive plan back in the early 1990s when it was adopted. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the third piece of this, the background work, is that the critical areas update. As part of the Growth Management Act, we are required every 8 years to review our critical area rules. And the critical area rules are, for instance, for geologically hazardous areas, steep slopes, coal mine hazard areas, as well as fish and wildlife habitat areas, floodplains, wetlands, and such. And we're required to evaluate our existing rules against what's called the best available science. That's the term of art that comes out of the Growth Management Act. And we have had an independent consultant objectively look at our current rules and evaluate those in light of the best available science that's out there. This won't be a surprise for any of you, but what we found for a lot of our critical area rules, a lot of them, for instance, geologically hazardous areas, the rules are fine. Really not a lot of significant changes necessary. But what we're finding is any of our critical areas that relate to water, wetlands, fish and wildlife, floodplains, anything that relates to water, the rules are significantly changing. And so there are going to be some recommendations that come forward to the council for any of our critical areas and some of the rules that relate to them where they touch water. But I always like to look at this as the glass half full, that a lot of our critical areas won't have to be touched in a meaningful way, but the water-related ones are going to require some additional review and work on the part of the city. So given that background work that's been going on, we are focused now on the remaining elements: the housing and human services, land use, transportation, capital facilities, and community planning. We have identified a work program that gets us through the balance of this year. And we're continuing to keep the Planning and Development Committee and the Planning Commission briefed as we go through this process. But given our opportunities to come here before the Committee of the Whole, we really wanted to bring you up to date. We have penciled in November 4th as our next big open house on these remaining 5 elements that we have. So that'll be an opportunity where we have draft elements available for the public to come in, talk to staff, understand, and provide comments and feedback so that they can be considered as part of the public process. Additionally, we're planning on, again, having an online survey. This has really been a helpful tool to have an online survey so people don't have to come here to City Hall for the open house, but can simply get the information online and then fill out a survey. And then we plan on having a Planning Commission public hearing on December 3rd on these elements, and then bringing this complete package back to the Committee of the Whole in January of 2015. And then we'll really start through the Planning and Development Committee work at that process with expectation and hope that we'll have this done by June of next year. So we're about halfway through the process. There's a lot to be done here. But we've had a really very successful effort going forward, and a lot of positive feedback on the work that's been accomplished, but there's a lot of work left to be done here as well.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Chip, can you give me some examples of what type of community outreach we're doing that is non-typical of what we have done historically, that really seeks to deepen the engagement of our very diverse community in something as complex as this, trying to connect individuals in our community who otherwise would be oblivious to this, maybe not even having a computer, certainly wouldn't come to one of our meetings. What are we doing to capture that population of people?
Well, as part of this comprehensive plan update, we're really building on the lessons learned and the successes of the Benson Hill Community Plan. As you're aware, we received a lot of acknowledgement and acclaim for the outreach that we did as part of the Benson Hill Community Plan. So several things that we're doing as part of this public outreach program. Number one is to get out into the community where the people are. We're providing information at our city booth at each of the community picnics that we go out to. At every picnic that we go out to, the 23 picnics that are held throughout the summer, we have a CED representative there at the picnics, and we're providing information for the public. So we're going out to them and using that as an opportunity and forum to talk to them. Also, we're using our community liaisons here in the city to be able to connect back to the community about this process. But probably most importantly is some of the, we've been able to identify specific leadership groups within the city to be able to get the information out to them as well. So we're really trying to replicate the lessons learned from the Benson Hill and not count on one or two, but really try to get to people as many ways as possible and making ourselves accessible to the public at the same time.
Have we considered any type of efforts that goes directly into certain communities outside of the picnic? When we start talking about, different groups of people like the Ukrainian, population, the African population, Latino, I mean, are we going to places where these individuals are located and helping to educate them about the importance of this?
Yeah, well,
How it connects
that's
them.
part of the role and responsibility. That's why we use our community liaisons and try to keep them briefed and informed to act as agents reaching out for the community. But again, a lot of lessons learned. We're continuing to work with staff within the city to identify the best ways to reach our different communities we have. So we have a truly representative sample of people who participate in the process to the extent we can. And if you have any suggestions for you, Councilmember Taylor, or any council members, please, if there's something we're missing here, please let us know, and we'll do everything we can to make sure this is inclusive a process as possible.
I do have some suggestions. I'll be happy to sit down with you and
That'd be
Sure.
fantastic, and we'd appreciate it. Thank
Keep
you.
going, Chip.
So, I referred to some of the work that's going on with respect to the land use element, and we have drafted what we call a white paper that is really an evaluation of the existing zoning within our different communities. We have 10 different community plan areas within the city, and we've done an evaluation of the zoning, both in terms of, number one, what is existing density build out of the community, and as well, what does the zoning allow for, to see if there's a connection or a disconnect between zoning and the established density within the community. The second thing we've really looked at is where our environmental constraints are located within the city and trying to balance the zoning against the environmental constraints as well. And what we've identified as part of this white paper is that there are some issues that have come up, particularly in terms of the amount of development potential in our R8 zoning as well as our RM zones. So we're looking at that and wanted to identify here at the Committee of the Whole that part of the opportunity here may be to look at some interim zoning controls that would alleviate that potential capacity for development while we're going through this comprehensive plan update process. And interim zoning would provide an opportunity to slow down the growth in some of these areas while we consider what the long-term zoning and land use designation should be in some areas of the city. So there'll be more discussion with that with the council as we move forward. So that's just a very high-level review of the work we're doing as part of the comp plan update, as well as some of our development regulations. And the last thing I'd like to talk about with respect to regulations is medical marijuana. As the council remembers, we adopted rules last year for retail marijuana in the city. It was the expectation of the city a year ago that the state legislature would combine both medical marijuana as adopted by Initiative 692, and, I'm sorry, medical marijuana was 692, recreational marijuana was Initiative 502, and we thought the legislature would take those two initiatives and bring them together under one. Didn't happen last year, and into our discussions with our representatives in governmental affairs and with Doug Levy, our lobbyist in the Association of Washington Cities, frankly, there's not a lot of hope that it's actually going to happen this year as well. And so what I wanted to share with the council is, given the fact that it doesn't appear that the legislature is going to merge these two laws together, we have adopted rules that deal with retail marijuana that is highly regulated as well as taxed, where medical marijuana is not regulated to any degree and taxed. It's going to be our recommendation moving forward that we have the council evaluate whether or not we want to even entertain having medical marijuana within the city. Right now, the city council has adopted a moratorium on medical marijuana. The council put that in place while the legislature was going through its process. That moratorium is set to expire at the end of September. So we wanted to advance and let the council know that we're looking at, from the administration's point of view, advancing for discussion with the council the idea of not providing for medical marijuana being allowed use in the city, and rather just sticking with our rules for retail marijuana sales that have already been adopted by the city council. So that's something that we're looking at as well. We'll be working on this fairly quickly, though. As I said, the moratorium is set to expire at the end of September, and rather than simply re-adopt another moratorium, it'd be more effective simply to deal with this issue as a policy issue for the city council moving forward. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Cliff, who's going to give you a current project update from CED.
Thank you, Chip. Mr. President, members of council, it's an honor to be here with you tonight. I thought I would just spend a few minutes and go through some of the current projects that we have going on in economic development throughout the city. So we'll start a little bit with retail, and I think the last time I had a chance to visit the Committee of the Whole and talk about projects was back in April, and we've had several projects take place since then. First and foremost, definitely our largest project that was announced during the time frame was the new IKEA redevelopment, and we're really excited about this particular development. It's 399,000 square feet, and it's actually coming in to be designed for expansion for an additional 45,000 feet, making their request 444,000 square feet, a very, very large facility. Right now, IKEA has about 400,000 square feet of buildings right now, but half of it is the parking structure. And this new facility is going to be a state-of-the-art two-story facility, and it's much, if anyone has seen the IKEA in Portland or in the Salt Lake area with the two-story format, similar to that, only this facility will be about 100,000 square feet larger than Portland. The intention for IKEA is to essentially tear down the parking structure on that end of the facility and construct the new two-story facility where the parking structure was, while maintaining operations in the current store, and then open the new store and then tear down the existing store and put parking in without missing a day of sales. So it's a pretty exciting project. We're sure happy that they chose to keep this project in Renton. It's definitely an economic driver for our community, and we're happy to have them.
Dawn, when is this anticipated to start and complete?
You know, we are waiting to take in the full permit package here, but I think it's ideally is supposed to be open in 2017.
Thank
So-
you.
Guys having trouble with it too.
Yeah. The next project I just wanted to touch on was the CVS store, and this, of course, is the renderings that we've been working with for CVS, the first store from that chain in the Seattle region. This is what it looks like this week. Things are coming rapidly to a close here. It's a very, very nice-looking facility. It's certainly changed the look of the corner of Benson and Carr with the way it's elevated to meet the street, and with the pedestrian amenities that have gone in along Benson in the front. And their grand opening will be a week from today. So certainly hope that members of council can join in that event.
Cliff,
Yes, Mr. President?
on that site, is this where they're planning to build the new McDonald's too?
Yes, sir, just directly next door on that same site.
Thank you.
Yes. In terms of office, I just wanted to touch on a very large project that I'm sure many of you have heard some rumblings about, and that is the FAA office project. And back in April, the General Services Administration issued a request for proposals essentially for new office space for the FAA. And unlike their previous search, which specified 5 areas in South King County, this time they opened the search to sites within a 10-mile radius of their current location on Lind. And that also includes the downtown Seattle Central Business District. And they're looking for 300,000 square feet to lease for a 20-year term in order to support 1,600 employees. One of the challenges with this particular project is that it requires 1,200 parking spaces be made available for employees. We thought that that would bode well for Renton and some of the areas that we have. But it was clarified by GSA and the FAA during the process that only 60 spaces need to be included with the building. The remaining 1,100 just need to be made available for employee parking. So that would allow paid parking options for their employees if they were to choose a downtown Seattle option, for example. So definitely a very competitive process here. You may have seen some snippets in the news about other communities vying for this. We certainly want to keep this employer in Renton if at all possible, and so we're working to do so. But I just wanted to bring you up to date on that. Again, they're looking at on a very fast track here on this process. They want to occupy that site August 1st of 2017. In terms of manufacturing, just a couple of quick things to touch on. Boeing had an interesting announcement this month about a new model of the 737 that will be built here in Renton as well. It's kind of a minor new product modification for them, but it allows the 737 to have a full 200 seats, and that's really a spot in the market that there isn't a lot of competition right now, and I think there's a lot of demand for that kind of 200 seat. So it's going to be an interesting new product that will be here in Renton. We're happy to have that. Also, in terms of manufacturing, just last week, PACCAR made their public announcements at their second quarter earnings conference about the 178,000 square feet PACCAR Parts Distribution Center that would be located on their site here in Renton. It's no additional employees are forecasted right now for this particular building, but it's a major new investment at the Renton plant.
Cliff, as I understand, they've already preloaded the site, so they must be getting ready to rock and roll.
Yes, we've taken it in. I don't know where it sits right now, Chip, in the process.
Yeah, it's going through plan review.
Yeah, but we've done a conceptual plan review with them at this point, and so it's in the process. In terms of mixed-use projects, I know we've talked to council quite a bit about the project at 2nd and Main, the Heritage Apartments. I did want to share, this is the latest rendering on here, and I have to say that our planning staff has done a great job in working with their development team and their architects to make a beautiful project here, and I think every time I see a new version of the rendering, it just looks better and better. And this is definitely going to be a gateway project for our downtown.
And I see they already have the cars going 2 ways.
Yeah. Like to see that. Just very quickly, in terms of lodging projects, we touched on, just very quickly on Southport. Southport has applied for their permit to do their initial ground stabilization work. They're going to do extensive preparation on the site to improve the soil loading capability out there, and so that is going through our review process right now, and we hope to get them going on that very soon. And in that same neighborhood, we had confirmation last week that the developer working on the Hampton Inn project still intends to bring this project forward and move that project forward, but we don't have any further information or details at this time other than their interest in still continuing with this project.
Beth, going back to the hotel site, have they started, and this is a transportation question, but I know they're widening that intersection. They need to widen the intersection there at the entrance to Coulon.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Mr. President, what the schedule is on that, but I thought it was this construction season.
In Transportation Committee, I believe they have to wait now until after the summer season, the Coulon usage. They only had until mid-May, I believe, and then things didn't work out, so they just didn't get going on it as fast, is what we were told.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to confirm what Councilmember Palmer said, the window they have for construction is any time of the year outside of May 1st to September 30th. But soon as late spring and summer hits, when Coulon Park becomes its busiest, that's the period of time that we told them that we wouldn't provide or allow for construction activity there, because it'd be a mess.
Okay, thank you.
Wanted to touch on a little bit on some multifamily projects that we've talked about, but just a quick note on single-family statistics. There's a great article in today's Seattle Times about housing activity in the region from April through June. During that time period, there were 1,349 single-family residences sold in Renton. That's only Bothell and Seattle had more transactions during that period. Bothell only had 10 more than we did, but so a lot of activity in the single-family real estate sector this spring. The median in Renton was $354,000, and 36% of all the sales were above the asking price. So I thought that was pretty interesting statistics. Back to multifamily, the Vantage Point apartment project that we've talked about, the 77 units of affordable senior housing, they were on a very tight timeline to meet some obligations for financing on here, and I know that our planning and development staff worked with their development team very closely and to move this forward, and excited to say that Friday, August 8th will be the groundbreaking for that particular project. Also, we've talked quite a bit about Kirkland Avenue Townhome project in the Sunset area. This is a couple of pictures to see that those modular units have been delivered and set on site. The roofs have been set. They're working on the siding and exterior details of the project right now. Very quickly, I wanted to update council on some community marketing efforts that we have done as well. One of them you will see in conjunction with the IKEA announcement. We placed an ad in the Puget Sound Business Journal thanking IKEA for its investment. We also placed an ad in the International Council of Shopping Centers Shopping Center Today transaction, talking about this and the retail opportunities available in Renton. We thought that was, it's always great to be able to capitalize on good news. And also just wanted to bring to your attention that we've developed 3 new websites specifically for marketing the community. The first one is our new economic development site. It's called yrenton.com. And it's just brand new. We're still updating some of the photography and information, but a fresh new site for us to be used for marketing. It's mobile friendly, and I think is going to be quite an enhancement in our marketing efforts. It goes along and matches with the effort that we did earlier in the year with the rentonaerospace.com, specifically to target opportunities in the aerospace sector. And also, we have a new site called Renton for Events that actually helps promote events and tourism opportunities here in the community as well. And that's my presentation, Mr. President.
Thank you. This may be more for Chip because it's along the building, but as you go up the Benson Road from here, there's one set of apartments that are being built. And then you go up the Benson past just past the light and where the church was, that's been torn down. Is that going to be apartments or housing? Do you know?
Boy, how far?
Well, it's right as you go up the Benson, past Puget Drive, and then it takes kind of the little curve that there was a big church there, and they're tearing that down.
Village Chapel.
That is, I believe that, I'm trying to remember the name of that project, but that is a multifamily project.
Okay. And then the old fire station site on the Benson that we sold that's under construction.
That's under construction right now. That is also a multifamily project. That's called Fieldbrook Commons. And if any of you get a chance, I know it's under construction, but there's a road that goes back in there. It's going to be a really good project. I'm really excited about this one. The developer was willing to do some significant wetland enhancement and creation as part of us allowing them to fill a couple of the wetlands on the front developable part of the property, but it's going to make for a really nice amenity for the community and for the project. So if you get a chance, actually, I've gone back there a couple times to look at it, and it's gonna come on. We spent a lot of time working with the community there. It's part of what's called a PUD, a planned urban development. So there's a lot of amenities and design qualities as part of that project going forward. So I'm really, it's an R14 project, but under the PUD, they aggregated the density to do multifamily and created more common open space as a result. So I'm really anxious to see how that comes together, and I hope you all like it when it's done. We really worked hard on that one.
And then the other day as we were driving by the old Renton Western Wear site, I saw somebody in the downstairs with a big roll of plans and laying them out. Any idea what's going on there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mr. President, the Renton Western Wear building was purchased by a company called Memory Box Inc., who is they do high-end custom stationery and paper products. They have about 17 employees, I believe. They're going to occupy the second floor of the Renton Western Wear, and they're looking to redevelop the first floor for new space. And they have a facade project in there that's going to change a little bit of the facade of the Renton Western Wear building, and John Collum from our team has been working very closely with them. So.
Good. Anything else in the wind that you can think of, that you can tell us about? That's always the key question.
Right. I can just say, Mr. President, that we have had, typically during the summertime, interest slows down for economic development projects. People are on vacation doing other things. I can say it's been very busy. We've had significant interest, including from some major retail developments. So a lot of things going on.
Great.
Eh.
Any other questions from the council? Seeing none, the committee of the whole is adjourned, and we'll be back at 7 o'clock.